You're listening to the Jam Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guest is award winning writer, director, producer, John Scheinfeld. And we're going to be talking about his absolutely beautiful, beautiful documentary entitled Baseball Beyond Belief. Welcome back to the show, John.
Nice to be back with you, Jen. Thanks.
When I was looking at your biography again, I realized this is your third time for being on the show, but
Right.
and one of the I think the very first time you were on, we it was Sergio Mendes in The Key of Joy, and Sergio, the late great Sergio Mendes, was on that interview, and that was one of my favorite interviews. When people ask me, what's your favorite interview, I always say that
Oh,
interview with you and Sergio was just truly amazing, and
oh, how nice.
we
Thank
miss
you.
him. We miss him. But
We
not
do.
only that, I've had you on the show with I'm just going to go through this. What the hell happened to Blood, Sweat and Tears, which I also loved, and I had Steve Binder on with Reinventing Elvis, the 68 comeback, and then Spencer Proffer, who produced with you, I think, Chasing Train, the John Coltrane documentary. So I've covered a lot of your documentaries through the years.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Anytime someone other than my wife pays attention, I'm delighted.
Well, obviously, I'm a big fan. I'm
Yeah.
a big fan. But I can't wait to do a deep dive into baseball beyond belief because as I've loved every one of your documentaries, but I think this one is truly a masterpiece.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Truly.
That's nice of
You're
you to say.
you're welcome. I laughed, I cried, I think I went through every emotion watching this. And who thought watching a movie about baseball and belief would evoke that kind of reaction? Because
Yeah,
as you know, I see a lot of movies.
yeah. Well, that was the challenge really here is to take something, really to take two subjects that one would not ordinarily connect in any meaningful way, but also to make it accessible to people. So we're not doing something academic, we're not doing something religious, we're not doing so I brought my usual storytelling skills, and I always like to make people laugh and cry. So if I can do that, and if I made you do that, then I did my job. Me and my team did our job properly.
You did do your job properly, and you also learn a lot too. There's a lot of history in this, and some history we're not aware of. And I always love learning new things. And there was quite a few things that were new to learn in watching this, so that enriched my experience even more. Yeah, there's so much to go into, but this is based on a book. How did this project come to you, and why did you decide to do Baseball Beyond Belief?
Well, I had done a film back in 2008, came out in 2009, about Chicago's love affair with the Chicago Cubs. And I worked with a number of people at Major League Baseball, and it was a great working experience. And we'd been looking to do a new project together. And as life in show business can be, it took a lot longer than we thought because I got busy with other things, and we never quite found the right one. But in 2019, Major League Baseball sent me this book by John Sexton, who is the president emeritus of NYU, and it was based on a course that he taught at NYU, and it was called "Baseball is a Road to God." A road to God, not the road to God, a very important distinction. And the book was a New York Times bestseller. And so they sent me the book and said, "Do you think there's a documentary film in this?" And so I read this book, and I was absolutely fascinated by it. As we said, connecting two unlikely subjects, and just the deep dive that he took into ways in which these two things are similar, surprisingly similar. And I thought, yes, absolutely, there's a film here. Then it took us a while to put it together, and then COVID came, and but here we are. And so it was mostly, I mean, you and I have talked several times, so you know that I select projects to do either because they nurture my soul, like this one does, or they make me laugh, like Dick Van Dyke, which I did just recently for PBS, or it's somebody whose work I really admire, like John Coltrane or Blood, Sweat, and Tears or Elvis. So this really fit directly into that. And I'm really quite proud of how it all turned out.
Well, you should be. It is really wonderful. I have a dear friend who's a huge fan of baseball, really into it, plays in a senior, men's league and whatnot. And I immediately after I watched this, I text him, I said, "You have got to see this movie." He says, "When and where is it playing? I'm bringing all of my friends
Ah, I'm delighted.
to go
That's
see
so
it."
great.
So yeah, I already got a big audience for you started off, and we'll get more after this interview for sure.
Terrific.
So I love how you laid it out by innings. I thought that was really beautiful and brilliant, and the way you laid it out. And so there's so much into it. There's so much I want to ask you. How did? Let's just start with the two priests.
Right.
Let's start with
Right.
them.
Yeah. Well, the general structure of the film is first inning, second inning, third inning, fourth inning, fifth inning, through the 9 innings, and then post game, which allows us to discuss a lot of these similarities. And each inning has a different theme to it. So one is about faith and doubt. One is about miracles. One is about community, that sort of thing. But I wanted to break it up with some more personal stories of people to whom baseball has meant much and how perhaps it has changed their lives in some significant way. So we have three of those standalone stories within the 9 innings. And one of them are these two Franciscan friars, Father Casey and Father Tito, young guys who are huge baseball fans. And they talk a lot about, in the Franciscan order, their part of their service is to go out into the community and preach the gospel. And it said in the old days, priests would and friars would go out to the town square and talk to people, but people don't go to the town square, even if there is a town square anymore. So they said, so where do people go? And they go to baseball parks. And they thought that would be really cool because it, much like the film itself, it blends baseball with faith. And they decided they were going to go to all 32 baseball parks and preach the gospel. And we have this little standalone story about them and what they did and how they did it. And it's kind of light and fun because they're light and fun.
Yeah,
And so that's where those guys came from.
and they are. They're very light and fun.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, Jan. They dress in these robes, and so it depends, on your perhaps your age or your faith, but they can either look like Friar Tuck in the Robin Hood movies, or they can look like some of the heroes in a Star Wars film. Either one, and they do get approached by people who think that. So it's kind of interesting.
And I'm sure people would not be used to seeing friars at their baseball game too. I was raised Catholic, so I'm more familiar with that.
Mm.
But definitely, I think, and they were just cute and adorable on how they approached it too. That they didn't really, weren't hard hitting, prophesizing different things. They were open, and people were open, and they were fun, and so
Yeah, and their attitude really was they didn't want to be in your face
right.
proselytizing. If people wanted to talk to them, they could, and if they wanted to talk baseball, that's fine as well. There was one of them had been approached by someone whose parent had recently died, and they hadn't had a chance to talk to anybody, and something in the interaction with the friar brought out this person's feeling comfortable talking about the death of a parent and how to process it.
Wow.
And I think, Jan, what I would say is that this is part of the overall whole of this film, that it is about looking at these similarities, but there's also kind of a theme here about how to make your life better, how to live a more enriched life. And one of the concepts that we talk about, and it's applicable to both religion and baseball, is slow down. Don't be looking at your phone all the time. Don't be thinking about what you have to do tomorrow. Don't thinking about you got to get the kids to the doctor. Don't think about if you slow down and watch more of what's going on around you, you may enrich your experience. And that's absolutely true in a baseball park where there's a lot more going on than just the pitcher throwing to the batter. There's defensive things going on. There's signals from the manager to the batter. There's repositioning. There's stuff going on in the stands. And if you slow down and pay attention to all of that, it's going to make your day at the park even more enriching. And the point of view we take in the film is that let's think about doing that in our daily lives as well. That if you slow down and notice more of what's going on around you, you can lead a more fulfilling life. And so it kind of fits into the kind of film I do like to make, which is something that's uplifting and
Mhm.
inspiring and entertaining at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what you do so well.
Mm,
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more about putting those phones away and, not being glued to them constantly. I mean, I go on my morning walk and there's people who are on their phones when they're doing their morning walk. And I'm like, how could you do that? I
that's
mean,
right.
they're literally like texting and everything. They're not just like listening to maybe a podcast like mine. But I'm like,
Exactly.
I want to get away from it as much as I can, And I think that's the message right now for all of us. I think that's why this timing of this movie is so perfect because there's so much going on in the world right now, as we all know, and we need to get away from that and just be in the moment and enjoy the moment. And what a better place to go enjoy the moment than a good baseball game.
Right. And let's think about doing something that's more positive and uplifting, unlike much of what we're surrounded by in the country and the world at the moment.
I agree. I agree. Well, that brings us to one of the sections that made me cry quite a bit is and I'm going to mispronounce this name, Kenichi Zenimura.
Benamura, yes.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Kenichi
That's our second standalone story. Um, People hear a lot about what happened during World War II to the Japanese Americans, where they were rounded up and put in concentration camps. What you don't hear so much is how they coped with that entire experience. And we found a story of a guy who had lived up in Central Coast area of California and was sent to a concentration camp in Arizona. And rather than mope around or be depressed or not do anything, he's a very positive, optimistic person, and he started a baseball league. And there were 32 teams in this concentration camp. And it was a way for them to find pride and purpose while they were behind the barbed wire. And he was a hard taskmaster in terms of demanding the best out of his players. But as we show in the film, he went to extraordinary lengths to organize the league, to build a field of dreams, if you will, and all of that. So I found this a very inspiring, uplifting story of how one deals with adversity. And in this case, baseball was the solution to how to confront that.
Yeah, and it was such a dark period in American history as to what we did to the Japanese Americans. So to see this, and you're right, to see how they did cope. But it's carried on. It's not, he started this legacy, but the way you portray it is it's carried on throughout the family.
Yeah, very much so. And I was very moved by that
Me
and
too.
how they did that. And we found some great footage and photos of something that happened so long ago, and that was nice. But it didn't really matter what era it happened in. It's really a very human story of confronting adversity. Um, our third story, you probably were going to ask me about that, but I may as well.
Go
Is
ahead.
also it's the one that really gets me. I've probably seen it 100 times, and I still get choked up at this story of a young boy who was born with a neuromuscular disease that should have killed him in his teens. It didn't.
Mhm.
But also, what happens with this disease is called Batten's disease, and you actually go blind around the age of 7, which he did. But baseball was what he lived for. And so we talk a lot about that and why and how baseball impacted this young man's life and the lives of those around him, including parents and his best friend. And there are many moments in that story that will make people very emotional, but again speaks to the human spirit and baseball's role in elevating that.
How did you find some of the people that you featured? This young man, how did his story come to you? Also, Kenichi's story. Am I saying it right? Kenichi's story.
Yeah,
How did those stories come to you prior to doing this film?
they were not in the book. The idea of including these stories was my idea in terms of, anytime adapting a book. You cannot do it literally. There has to be some things that will make it a little more cinematic or broaden it out for a more general audience. And so, very much based on the book, but we did take some license to create some new sequences. Um, and whenever I'm making a film, I cast the people in it very much like you would cast a scripted film, which is I want different personalities, different voices, different perspectives, different ways of expressing themselves. So all of our experts in the film, we did a very deep dive to look at all different kinds of people who had spoken on the notions of baseball and faith being somehow connected. We also had John Sexton, the author of the book, who figures prominently in the film as well. Um, but for these stories, I have some great researchers, and they went out and looked at anything and everything they could find that brought baseball and faith together. We must have looked at, I guess we probably looked at 40 or 50 stories and really narrowed it down to the three that we have. And even with those, I wanted them to have a different feel and a different tone. So we have the lighter tone of the two Franciscan friars. We have a very emotional, thank you very much, Jan, a story of the Japanese internment. And then we have a very emotional contemporary story about parents raising and caring for a child who was born with this unfortunate disease. So each one of them is different and speaks to a different aspect of the connection between baseball and faith. But a lot of it is just research, and you got to sort of really, really dig deep to find something and not just grab at the first one or two that cross your path.
How long did it take you to put this film together, John?
It's a good question, Jan. Again, I think we were delayed a bit by COVID, so I would think start to finish without the stops in between for the pandemic, probably about 3 years on this one, which is longer than most for me. Usually I'm 12 to 14 months on a film. And so this one just took a little longer. Because of the pandemic and some of the things caused by the pandemic, it really delayed us.
So this wasn't a little different for you in the respect of taking a little longer. I'm looking John Sexton. You put him in the film. So he was he actually teaching this class still because he is the emeritus of it's NYU, I think, or did he do this the for the film itself?
He still teaches the class.
He still teaches the
He
class.
teaches it every spring,
Okay, perfect.
and he has a fascinating background. He teaches both in the law school and teaches a religious oriented class, particularly this one. And so, no, that's still ongoing. And in fact, we had a screening of this film last year in Dubai because he was teaching the class there.
Ah,
NYU has a campus in Dubai, which is in the United Arab Emirates.
okay.
And it was fascinating, Jan, because we were in a theater in a multiplex, 300 people, I'm guessing mostly Islamic, Muslims. Uh, and they do not have baseball as part of their daily life like we do here. So we were all absolutely curious how they would respond to this. And a lot of people came up to me and John afterward and said, we don't understand baseball, but it didn't matter. The concepts you're talking about very much apply to our game of soccer. And so we talked about it a little bit earlier, but some of those hallmarks really of both are, so you think about your favorite team. You have faith that they're going to do well. You have doubt that they're going to do well. You have miracles with certain plays. You have a sense of community. We talked about that. We talked about nostalgia, that you can have nostalgia for the traditions of baseball and for the traditions of faith. And you have saints and sinners.
Right.
So you have saints and sinners in faith-based things, and then you have saints like Jackie Robinson or Roberto Clemente or Ernie Banks or Hank Aaron, and then you have sinners like Pete Rose and Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa and people like that. So he teaches the class, and the fact that he taught it in a place that didn't understand baseball, and it still had an impact. I thought was terrific. And so I think what I would say to your listeners is it doesn't matter what religion you are, it doesn't matter what sex you are, it doesn't matter what race you are, it doesn't matter what age you are. You're going to find something thought-provoking and entertaining in the issues that we bring up here and the similarities that we find between baseball and religion.
I agree. And there's a quote here in the press materials, and it's this is a quote: "I am an atheist, and I am not a baseball fan, and yet." The film left us both joyful and in tears, and we found so much that we could relate to in your 9 innings.
And don't we need that today,
Yes,
with what's going
do.
on?
We do. We need to be united, and because we're so divisive right now, as we all know. But baseball can bring us all together. You
You
know?
bet. You can go to the ballpark. And again, we talked about age and sex and race, but it's also your politics. You could be sitting next to somebody who believes something totally different, but you are united in your faith for your team. And I think that's a much more positive way to look at life these days.
I agree wholeheartedly. I love that you do have the saints and sinners in there too. I thought that was a nice, it was important to add that piece to
Hmm.
the film for, because not everybody's a hero
Right.
at all.
That's
And
right.
yeah, and Jackie Robinson, learning. Well, I immediately wanted to go watch the movie 42 after this.
Well, it's interesting. Not only is he a saint because of what he accomplished on the field, but also how he conducted himself off the field, he and his
Yeah.
family. And we talk a bit about that. Um, but it's also, I think, an example of how baseball impacted things socially and culturally in this country. That his becoming the first African American to play baseball had an impact far greater than just the Brooklyn Dodgers. And I think we can look at that also. And I think with sinners, we look at somebody like Pete Rose and who never had any contrition and never had any apologies for how he behaved. And is that the image we want for our kids and friends and family? I don't think so. I think you want somebody who's going to do good in the world.
Yeah. Well, we need that. We need our heroes. They're becoming few and far between, I think. So
You bet.
yeah, this movie brings there's a lot of heroes in this. And I love that John Sexton, I mean, his story about he and his son. So I don't know if I don't want to give anything away in that little piece, but
Mm.
but
It's an interesting example of what a father will do out of love for his son.
yes,
Let's leave it at that.
we'll leave it at
So
that.
again, I think that's one of the many inspiring things we have in the 9 innings, plus the post game section.
Yes.
And so I think people will be moved and be entertained by what they see. There's also a lot of fun in this because there's fun in baseball and there's crazy wacky things that happen and all of that. We also talk about curses and blessings, and that of course makes sense in the faith world and but also in baseball. Being
Mm.
a longtime Chicago Cubs fan, I know a lot about curses and wished for blessings many times.
And I had no idea that story about the curse with the with Chicago Cubs.
Yes,
I mean, I know
those of us in the Midwest, we know that story.
you
It
know
has
that
haunted
story.
us for many years.
I curse you. So that was great, and we were so excited. I didn't care if you were, whether you were a baseball fan or not. But when they won, a few years ago, everybody was cheering across the country.
They really were, and those of us fans were just. It was like, thank goodness, it's about time.
Yeah, my older brother and sister-in-law live in Chicago, so they were definitely cheering and everything. And I'm also from the Midwest, so
There you go. So you
yeah.
understand that.
Yes, I
Yeah.
do. I definitely do. But there's just so much to this film. As I said, I really believe this is, I mean, and your films are always excellent, always, always, but I think this is one of your best. It really, truly does feel like a masterpiece, the way it's put together and the stories and, all of it. As the quote I just read, it doesn't make any difference if you like football or if you're spiritual or religious or whatever. This is a movie for absolutely everybody and children. This is what a film for all the entire family to go see. It really is. It will bring conversations. I mean, you'll have definitely have conversations afterwards after you see the film.
Yeah, we really designed it that way. There'd be something you could take the whole family to and talk about and all of that, because it really is talking about, as we say, enriching your life.
Totally, 100%. And that's what we need right now, John. Where can people see baseball beyond belief?
Well, we're still rolling this out. I'm going to mention a few things, but I will suggest that anybody hearing this will go to our website, baseballbeyondbelief.com, and it will give you all the details. What I can tell you now is we're going to have a limited theatrical. So we're going to be in four of the Laemmle theaters in Los Angeles. We're going to be in the Village East Theater in New York City, so we can qualify for Oscar consideration. If we
Great.
do well, they will extend the engagements. And what we're really hoping is that people will hear about this, see the press, see the reviews, and maybe other theaters and other towns will book this film. So we're very hopeful of that. But I would say go to the website, it'll list all of that. The one thing I can also say is there's going to be you may cry at this, Jan. I did. There's going to be a shorter version of the film on Easter Sunday on Fox Sports 1.
Oh, wow.
The head programmers for that network happened to come to see our friends and family and crew screening that we had here in LA. They had been invited by one of our producers, and they loved it so much they wanted to show it on Easter. And so I'm delighted for that.
Wow.
I'm sorry that I have to cut it down because we do. We had to cut it
Yeah.
down to 79 minutes. But the spirit of the film, the essence of the film is there. So people can watch that. And then if they want to see the full film, either we'll be lucky enough to get it in a theater near you, or it'll be on various video on demand platforms where you can rent or purchase it. But
Wow.
I do hope that lots of people will come and see it. I'm so proud of this. It speaks to me in so many ways, and I'm delighted that it spoke to you as well.
It did, John, and I wish you much success with it. And everybody seek it out. Go wherever you can possibly see it, and certainly on Fox One on Easter Sunday. Is that what it was? Fox One?
Fox Sports One.
This Fox Sports One on Easter Sunday. Now, how long is the film originally?
Film is 101 minutes with closing credits, so we had to take about 21 minutes out, which is
Okay.
not an easy thing. It's sort of like carving up your child.
No, I can
But we found a
imagine.
creative way to do it,
Good.
and so I think people will still get the essence of it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, John, it's always a joy having you on the show. I love everything you do. What's your next project? What are you working on?
I can't really talk about it at the moment. There's four or five that we're in various stages of securing the money. This is the thing, Jan. They don't tell you in film school that you're going to spend as much time on your knees begging for money as you are actually making the film.
Trust
Uh,
me, I understand.
and the money could come any time, and that time was not today, but
Okay.
hopefully soon. But
Right.
you'll have me back, and I can tell you about the next one. But there's a couple that are historic in nature, and there are some that are my usual pop culture in nature. So
Well, keep me posted because I
I
always love
will
having you on the show,
absolutely.
John. And I always love your documentaries. They're amazing and wonderful. So thank you. Thank you. It's a joy having you on and wish you much success with
Glad to be
baseball.
back with you as always.
You too. Thank you, John. Have a great day.
Yep, you too.
Thank you.